Now to invite Evan Smith back, but this time as the spokesperson for Avon-Otakaro Network.
Hey, kia ora koutou. Back representing the Avon-Otakaro Network with my colleagues Georgie Jardine and Peter Beck. There's parts of this might sound a bit brutal, so apologies for that, but let's see how we go. Avon-Otakaro Network is extremely concerned that in attempting the very difficult task of balancing priorities, that you've got the balance very, very wrong here, and that you need an urgent rethink of your long-term plan strategies. Len, in your introduction to the LTP, you identified that we must get the basics right, and we don't believe that you've done that here. You also indicate that the Garden City is about sustainability, about environmental protection and ecological values, clean rivers, clean air and flood resilience. You also identify the need to be aspirational and make Christchurch a place of opportunity. And you have set strategic priorities that include improved waterways, enabling active citizenship in connected communities and maximising those opportunities. But again, we don't believe this LTP delivers those outcomes. The reason for this is that there's very little here for the regeneration of the city, and in particular for the regeneration of the environment, for the regeneration of the eastern flatlands, and for enabling active citizenship and maximising these opportunities. For a start, the very process of consultation around the LTP, as Peter explained before, is an example of how appalling council processes are at engaging active citizenship. For a moment, let's focus on the Avon-Otakaro River Corridor. Recently, as you said before, we've had announcements of the proposed green spine as a default position throughout the corridor, which is great. And for the first time in 7 years, we now have an opportunity to progress transitional projects in the red zone with a lease period of up to 5 years and the ability to plant in the ground for the first time. Although if that's edibles, we still have to do a lot of soil testing and pass a lot of hurdles before we could even achieve that. We're in the final stages of defining a regeneration plan for the long-term future of these vast areas of land, and this unlocks enormous opportunities to reactivate the area right now and regenerate the corridor in a big way in the near future, and in so doing regenerate the suburbs of East Christchurch with it. However, there is no provision within the LTP for maximising this opportunity or for enabling active citizenship in this, despite many groups, as I said before, chomping at the bit to get things started. You as a council have a key role in this by facilitating seed funding for both transitional projects right now, they're desperate for money, and on a larger scale for a longer term capital projects as soon as the regeneration plan is approved, which should be within the next 12 months. But none of this has been included, no provision for this is in the LTP as it currently stands. And we have detailed what we believe should be provided for right now in the LTP in our submission in detailed amounts. You also have a role in signalling to other funding providers and their boards that now is the time to start investing in transitional projects in the East, that the regeneration of the East is far from being complete, is only just getting underway now. You also have a role as enablers in facilitating navigation through complex compliance hurdles that significantly challenge the fast tracking of these transitional initiatives, which is what you were speaking about before, Vicky. We ask that you work with community groups working in this area to enable active citizenship in participating in making these transitional projects happen. Our experience to date with working with council has not been tremendous. A lot of the delays you're talking about, Vicky, actually emanate from this body. We had 3 years of negotiations before we even got a transitional river trail along the river. And it took a long time to get that switch gone from red to green. 2 years of intense negotiations and that. What we've got is very second rate and make do, but we've got something. Moving the bit of the Medway Bridge along the trail. I was here late last year talking about it. We're still pushing that through council processes to get it achieved. This is what takes the time, Dickie. It's going through these processes and trying to cross all the T's and dot all the I's. It's not an easy process. It just doesn't happen overnight. And council as a landowner, a significant landowner in the regeneration zone, has an important role to play here. Secondly, the very modest budgets that support this, such as the Community Water Partnership, Water Ecology and Water Quality Improvement Programs, and the Pest Management Program, all are underfunded or not funded at all in this LTP. They're all really key programs to make things happen. But none of that will be to any avail unless you get the basics right. And the basics here are to meet your core obligations as council and your strategic priorities. And that is appropriate levels of investment in the Three Waters infrastructure. We believe you've dropped the ball on this in this LTP and are setting us up to continue to drop the ball for decades. The deprioritisation of investment, effectively disinvestment in wastewater infrastructure in particular, is a total abrogation of a key responsibility you were elected to undertake. All the fine words about cleaning up our urban rivers are just hollow words when you accept that it's okay to keep on overspilling shit into our rivers at an ever-increasing frequency with time. Yes, shit is offensive. In our waterways, it is culturally offensive to all cultures, tangata whenua and Pākehā. This is absolutely contrary to the spirit of your commitment to progressive improvement in your wastewater discharge consent, and morally wrong. It is no coincidence that much of the discharge flows east under the Matthew Fitzgerald Avenue, out of sight, out of mind, unless you live there. Wastewater infrastructure is not a nice to have. Good enough is not good enough. Disinvesting in wastewater is not acceptable, but here it is in this LTP. It is happening on your watch. Is this the legacy you want to leave to your kids? You must address this as a matter of conscience. Please, please rethink these priorities, and please, please engage with communities a lot better and a lot earlier when you're defining your infrastructure strategies in future. They are not the responsibility of staff alone, or just you, but all our responsibilities. But you must give us a chance to contribute meaningfully. That process for 2021 should start now with communities. But in the meantime, there is some very significant reprioritisation necessary with this LTP. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just start off with the $15 million SEAC fund? Whereabouts is that at?
That fund is still sitting there waiting to be used for long-term projects that connect communities throughout the east. But it's not to be spent on projects which local authorities would otherwise, and regional authorities would be expected to spend funding on. So it's not there to replace council budgets for the Otakaro cycleway, nor is it there to build footbridges, which would otherwise be the responsibility of this council.
No, I wasn't suggesting what it should be spent on.
It is there, and it has accrued interest.
So could it be used for some of the transitional projects that you're talking about?
That is something certainly we'd be discussing with the Canterbury Earthquake Appeal Trust through Regenerate Christchurch, and particularly the interest. There might be some capacity to do that there for sure. And there's certainly a need to access funding there, but there's also a need to talk to the philanthropic funders to make sure they're very clear. It's a message we're getting from many of our colleagues and other transitional community organisations that are promoting transitional uses, whether it's in the red zone or whether it's in the city, that the message is that there's no need for transition anymore. It's all done and dusted. But for the east, that process is only just starting. We're 5 years behind the CBD. The CBD still has need for transitional projects to make it activated. That process is only just starting in the red zone, and we need that backing and that support from you and from Regenerate Christchurch to make sure the philanthropics are also well aware of that they need to support those as a matter of priority right now.
Yeah, but I did want councillors, because not all the councillors will be aware. I mean, Eastern Vision, or the Avon-Otakaro network successfully negotiated with the, was known as the Prime Minister's Fund, for the $15 million to be set aside for this very purpose. Mm-hmm. So the question is how can we unlock that, and is there anything that we can do collaboratively to unlock that?
I think it's more to do with fast-tracking processes for compliance. I think the funding from that aspect will flow, but there's also a need. This is not going to happen from one pot of money. We're all going to have to put money into the pot to make these things happen, even at a transitional level, whether it's public funding through you guys, regional council and central government, whether it's philanthropics, or whether it's private money. All of them are going to have to put money in the pot to make this happen.
Well, that's absolutely true, and there's money that we have got on budget that will, you know, in terms of stop banks, in terms of major cycleway routes, all of those things. So they all come together, but the question is that you're asking council to set aside funding for projects to catalyse action in the red zone, and all I'm simply saying is that there is funding that you have access to that could assist with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have direct access to it, but it requires a partnership approach from all the agencies and from all the communities to work together to define what are the priorities in the short term and in the long term, and where do we direct that, the limited resources we have got into that.
Excellent.
It was very clear at the time when the cheque was presented that this was about the communities themselves having a key say in what might happen. And
no, I totally agree. Yeah, I was there. Dion. Yep. Okay, right. Look, thank you very much for your presentation. Yeah, hard-hitting and appropriately so, and look forward to working with you in a collaborative way. Thank you.